And now, welcome to a candidate forum featuring candidates for Colfax City Council. I am Kathy Souza, a member of the League of Women Voters of Placer County and moderator for today's forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization of women and men established to promote political responsibility through informed, active participation in government. The League does not support, oppose, or evaluate political candidates or parties. The format for today's forum will be as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. Next, the candidates will respond to questions from our audience. The questions will be reviewed by League members. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. Finally, the candidates will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. If you would like to submit a question, please use the chat feature and direct your questions to the League member who is labeled Submit Questions. Please try not to submit your questions to host or moderator, just to the person that's labeled Submit Questions. Volunteers will be screening those questions for appropriateness and redundancy. We will pose to the candidates as many questions as time allows. This is a 1-hour forum. And now I would like to introduce the candidates who are running for Colfax City Council. David Ackerman. Please say hi, Dave.
So I will unmute myself. Hello, this is David Ackerman.
Thank you. Kim Douglas.
Good evening, Kim Douglas.
And Marnie Mendoza.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Welcome, candidates, and thank you for participating in today's forum. We're now ready to begin with opening statements, and we'll start with Mr. Ackerman.
Good evening, everybody out there in the Colfax community. Again, this is David Ackerman, the new guy on the block. First of all, thank you for sponsoring this, Kathy, Bonnie. I'm just thankful to be here. With respect to my opening statement, I'm glad to be considered, and I know there's only 2 seats available. I look forward to this debate and look forward to the questions that will be asked. And I know that if I were accepted on this team, I know I'd be a great asset to not only the city council, but just to the city in general. So look forward to tonight. And yeah, thanks for coming out, whoever's online.
Mr. Douglas.
Unmute myself. I moved to this area about 22 years ago and fell in love with it and bought a house and had our daughter 1 year later, and she attended elementary and high school. And so I'm just honored and proud to be part of the community. And the reason I've run for city council, this is the 3rd time, so far I'm 2 for 2, is that, to use an old cliche, I just want to give back to the community. I'm active in the local events such as the community center. I'm president of the Colfax Community Center, and I help out with the food closet. And
You turn it for me so I can see.
I'm always looking to interact with the Lions Club and the Chamber of Commerce, finding out-of-the-box ways of bringing economic prosperity to our community. I helped bring about the quiet zone in Colfax, which a lot of the merchants appreciate. So the train doesn't honk its horn. Sounds like a minor thing, but it lets people sleep better at night. So I think my main focus is trying to think of different ways to help the community, things that are not just necessarily on the agenda when we meet twice a month, but anything, meeting with the Lions Club or the Chamber of Commerce, ways that we can improve the community. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza.
Hi, thank you, Susan and Bonnie and the Women League of Voters for giving us this opportunity. This year's very challenging to run for city council with COVID here. And so everything's pretty much been changed to Zoom. So I really appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to reach out to our community through this forum. I moved to Colfax in 2013 when my son was recruited up for football at our high school, Colfax High School. He was a Falcon. And I pretty much fell in love with this community when I got here because my son prior was a Zebra down in Lincoln, and he came as his junior year, and those boys just made him a brother, and the community was really great, putting support around him. So it made me fall in love with the town of Colfax, and I wanted to give back. So that's why I ran for office. The Moms Club came to me, said that the youth didn't have a voice, and, they wanted me to run. So I pretty much ran for office, and I am a former EMT since 9/11. And so my big deal is public safety. And I try my best to put up things to keep our community safe. And I'll go a little bit more into that if we have questions around that. But I'm really happy to be here, and it's good to see Kim and David could join us. And I'm looking forward to this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. For our first question, we'll begin with Mr. Ackerman. Why are you running for office?
I'm running for office because I just want to bring a fresh perspective to the team. I have a solid business background. I've also been on many boards, whether they're school boards, local Colfax Youth Soccer boards, business boards, if you will, the Planning Commission when I first moved here in 2005. So I've been a part of this community, since 2005, and I just want to continue trying to give back. And as a local business owner, I think I can apply that same skill set, if you will, to this team if I was honored enough to win a seat on the city council.
Mr. Douglas.
So, in general, I want to assist our city in becoming more economically viable. Right now, we're kind of on the borderline budget-wise of maintaining our costs. Also, I'm very concerned about creating housing for the middle class, which is, to me, the middle class is the backbone of America. And we do have 2 housing starts here recently, which I've helped encourage. I think what we need is to be more proactive, more creative in ways to bring economic development into our town. And we need to just work with people even outside the area to bring them, to make them aware that Colfax is a gem in the rough. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza. Oh, you need to.
I'm sorry, I had to mute myself. So sorry. Can you repeat the question really quick, please?
Sure. Why are you running for office?
Okay. So I'm running for re-election. I'm currently serving as your mayor. And the reason why I'm running for office is because we're in an unprecedented time, and COVID has really hit. It's a pandemic, so the world, but my thing is to focus on the community. And so that's what I've been doing since COVID hit. There's a lot of unbalance with the economic impacts that we're receiving. And I've been a fearless fighter for more resources and attention from our federal and state elected leaders, and demand that we receive our fair share from those funding sources to keep our citizens safe and protect us from future catastrophes. This is really important subject for Colfax because we are in one of the high-risk areas of California when it comes to wildland safety. And I've been fighting really hard for 4 years to make sure that we get our fair share of the money, and that the bigger cities, they get their share. So I'm out there fighting. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to remind our audience too that if you would like to submit a question, please use the chat feature and address your question to the person labeled Submit Questions. We will try to fit in as many questions as we can within this hour format. For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Douglas. What is your position on the city's marijuana ordinance, and what direction do you believe we should take in the future?
Well, currently we have medicinal is allowed, but recreational is not allowed. And we've spent quite a bit of money over the years reviewing this with attorneys, going from the left, going to the right, from the conservative to the liberal. But at the moment, I'm content with our current position of allowing medicinal. I don't think it's difficult for people to find the recreational if they really want to find it. So that will be up to, if there's going to be any change to the next city council in December, if they want to change direction on that attitude. But right now, I'm content with the current direction we're taking. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza.
Hi. Yeah, so the recreational or marijuana is a very controversial issue in Colfax, and we are a small community, and we have a lot of youth, you know, in the area. So I too am content with it being a medicinal, you know, place. But as far as when you're an elected leader, your voice no longer, you know, you become a back burner. You don't get to have a voice, and you have to listen to your constituents. And the constituents of Colfax do not want to see recreational sales in Colfax because of it being, you know, I don't know, whatever their reasons are. But when we went through all of this, I got a lot of emails from a lot of different people because it was so controversial. And so I stand by the people of Colfax that, you know, are in opposition of recreational.
Mr. Ackerman.
Well, in my opinion, we've pretty much been stuck with the medicinal aspect of it. So it's really a matter of, do we at least want to try to enforce it? And there's pros and cons. I've got children as well. You know, so I've got concerns, but at the same time, the reality is it's here, it happens. So again, do we want to check out the pros, which are, you know, revenue to the city, you know, at least we can control the enforcement, et cetera. And of course, the biggest con, as Marnie alluded to, is just how people feel about it. And, you know, it's a sensitive topic. As with many topics, you know, I would want to learn more and just form an opinion as time goes on. But as of now, that's kind of my take on this topic.
Okay, for our next question, we'll begin with Ms. Mendoza. What do you plan to do to alleviate the sewer fees for both residents and businesses?
Okay, so this has been like another one of those controversial issues, and I dove into trying to find solutions. So one of the things that I suggested was we apply for a grant, which was a $6 million grant to help with the improvements out at the sewer plant. So that's grant money is money that comes in from, like I said, those state and federal funds, or, you know, there could be county funds, and tap into those so it's not costing the citizens money, but we're making improvements. So I went on the subcommittee and we really zoned in on what were the issues. And there was a lot of issues around being able to take the enforcement part of the square footage. Some of the businesses were the bills are by square footage, and we need to relook at those things because it's an unfair balance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Mr. Ackerman.
Yeah, so overall, I believe that if you have smart economic development, I don't want to say that's going to be the answer to most things, but in this case, it pretty much is going to be a huge answer to it. With respect to a couple different examples of what we could do, you know, for example, if you change the billing structure You can eliminate some billing costs. You can preclude landlords from taking advantage of raising rates. As far as locally, there's a good example down in Auburn of this. Instead of bi-monthly, they actually have an annual tax rate, if you will. So that's just one good example. But again, what I would love to do is just continue to talk to people in the community, just as I would acclimate if awarded a seat on the council, and just apply my business skills to helping enhance business economic development.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas.
Well, unfortunately, the costs for the sewer are never going to go down. So we have to look at the other side of the general ledger. We need to encourage some serious economic business development, bringing in new businesses, and that will help. We have 2 housing starts. We have a Best Western 92 unit, which is going to help. But we need to think outside the box and bring in more businesses because the costs are not going to go down. The other thing we need to be aware of is that our projected 5-year budget may be difficult to sustain. We have the highest ratio, and I'm going to be unpopular saying this, of our police budget to our general budget, our income. So we need to think about that ratio and how that compares to the rest of the state. So we need to increase the budget and allocate money in a different way. Thank you.
For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Ackerman. What is your position on damming the Bear River?
Damming the Bear River, that's something that I haven't given much thought to. It's something that I would definitely want to reach out to the community more and get some more feedback on it. I am an outdoorsman. I personally don't think we need to dam it. I do know about the pros and the cons, but my personal opinion is keep it natural and don't dam it.
Mr. Douglas?
Well, okay. If I were on the Board of Supervisors, I would have more say. So I haven't spent a lot of time on it. In general, I'm probably in agreement with the other candidates where, you don't want to destroy natural scenery. But if these droughts continue, we may have to do the unthinkable and do that. Although I'm just glad, like I said, that I'm not in a position where I have to have the deciding vote. But I would like to perhaps dam an area where there's only a little stream and not take the Bear River, but maybe take a tunnel under a hill, divert it to another canyon that's not very well used, that's just a dry, desolate area anyhow. That's thinking outside the box, but I think we need to not just say either or. We have to think of other alternatives. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza?
Hi, yes. So the Bear River is one of my big fights. So Colfax actually has revenue that's coming in from the campground that's down there, but I'm not saying that that's why, it's unfair. We need to have that revenue coming into Colfax because, like I said, being a small city, we want to try and find as much revenue or grants that we can have. And the reason why I think that it's unfair to, mess with the Bear River, number one, is because there's 25 houses. So that's 25 families or individuals that live down in that area. So if this happens, those 25 houses that have lived there for generations are going to be gone. So that's one, big thing that I fight for is I fight for families that their voices are going silent and nobody's hearing them because there's these big things that are happening. So I'm against.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Douglas. What are your plans for improving our roads and infrastructure?
Okay, well, in 2012, I was elected my first term. I'm now running for my third term. And my mantra has been, since day one, we need a dedicated road program rather than hoping to get a grant out of the clear blue sky, which we get occasionally, and it's wonderful. but we need a plan, whether it's just one block a year. We need to allocate money for that, no ifs and buts. I've been working with 4 different city managers and several different city councils, and it would be helpful if 3 of us would agree upon a plan, even if it's half a block a year. It's just the attitude that we need to start. We have the worst roads in Placer County. We were evaluated. We're the dead last. If we were second to last, I wouldn't be whining about it. But since we're the last, that's one of my thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mendoza?
Hi, yes. So since I've been on council, we have spent $4.5 million on roads. We improved Rising Sun, Culver Street Phase 1, Culver Street Phase 2, Neelan Street, South Auburn Street, Whitcomb.
Oop, I think you muted yourself accidentally. Ms. Mendoza, I think you need to unmute yourself. Ms. Mendoza? You're muted.
Easier ingress and ingress for our emergency responders during evacuation procedures. That's what's important. We need to be able to get these citizens out. We don't just have the city of Colfax, we've got the surrounding areas of District 5 and all the unincorporated area. So that's a lot of people, and we need to make sure that we have a good traffic flow so that if the I-80 is back to back, we're able to use, anyway, the first, Sergeant Connors, the Placer County Sheriffs, they did a mapping of evacuations, and we're actually the first ones in the region to get that task done. And that's because I've been pushing for these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ackerman?
Yeah, first and foremost, I just want to stress that the preservation of our historical downtown is paramount, in my opinion. The general plan that doesn't come by, every 10, 15 years or so. I mean, if I was honored enough to win a seat on this city council, I would love to be a part of the general plan that would focus on, preserving the historical aspect of our town, but also, supporting economic growth. Specifically, to Marnie's point, since 2018, there's been about $4.55 million that has gone towards, just out of grant money that's gone towards improving roads. And there's a community development block grant, CDBG is the acronym, that of about another $3 million or so per year for the next 5 years. That I think is, it's all grant money that if we get it and secure it, it's going to be awesome with respect to being able to continue improving the roads and the infrastructure.
For our next question, we'll begin with Ms. Mendoza. How do you propose to meet the regional housing needs allocation, the RHNA affordable housing units, especially for low-income wage earners?
So we have a plan in place. We actually have already, these ones aren't the low income, so I won't refer to the ones that are already here. So there is actually a plan in place to put some development in, and we're working on that. The thing that's hard about the housing is that Colfax is a small town, and we love the way that the small town feels. So housing has to be really looked at closely, and there has to be transparency to this, because the citizens of Colfax that have been here for generations and the ones that want to live here and have that small town feel don't want a bunch of houses to come in like what happened down in Lincoln. So it has to be very transparent and very thought out. And we have a really good council this year. And, I'm hoping, it just has to be very methodically thought out.
Mr. Ackerman.
Yeah, transparency. That's a good word. I should have put that in my intro. Transparency is one of my strongest points, values, something I bring to the table to answer this question. to Marnie's point, there is a plan in place. And again, this is something that I would want to learn more about intimately, take feedback from the community, and just form my opinion given my skill set once I've obtained that feedback. So I totally agree with the transparency part.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes, the regional housing begins in Sacramento, SACOG, Sacramento Area Council of Governments. And I have meetings there twice a month, and that's where we come up with the allotment. But there's so many hoops we have to jump through with the state that when it ends up, trickles up to Colfax, it's maybe not exactly what we want. But if we want some state and federal funding, we have to jump through certain hoops. Now, we do have a 20 unit on Neelan Street. Those homes are about 370,000. So that's a start in that direction. And we're actually in better shape than just about every other city in Placer County concerning the regional housing. We'd like to see more. And I've been working with David Ackerman on that 20 unit development for years. And I'm happy to say that we are in better shape than all the other cities. Thank you.
For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Ackerman. What 3 steps would you take to put our city on firmer financial footing?
I mean, step one, again, I know it's been a central theme of my answers, supporting, but being smart about supporting and filtering and onboarding economic development, whether it's, allowing businesses to come in, et cetera. Definitely number 2, addressing the sewage issue. I've given some examples previously. I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I know that's a big pressing issue within the community. And with respect to just how do you make Colfax more financially stable, really the first item, just supporting economic development is probably the biggest one. Bringing in some more families, i.e. the 2 housing developments that are going in right now. I mean, when I first moved here, it was the opposite of how things are now. So I already see us moving in the right direction as a community overall.
Mr. Douglas.
Okay, yes, more housing. We need to be more creative, proactive in bringing businesses in. We have many vacant lots that are sitting there. We need to make the right contacts so that we get people from Sacramento and Roseville to move into some of those vacant lots, especially along Interstate 80. We, again, have a budget that could be in trouble in 3 to 5 years, so we need to allocate our funds a little differently. We just need to think outside the box. So often, for the last 8 years I've been city council, I noticed that we look at the agenda and we're good at analyzing what's on the agenda, but yet, if it's not on the agenda, we don't seem to be proactive in going out and trying to create situations that could later appear on the agenda, which we could then vote on. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza.
So I definitely agree with David and Kim Douglas in reference to we have to be creative with the economic development and being able to help our vivacity of the businesses that are here in Colfax, and kind of what I think outside of the box as well. And so what we have to remember is that Colfax has about 3 or 4 annual events. And so those are the things that I focused on was tourism, because tourism is very important. And I've been working hard since 2014 to get the Chinese monument made, and created a tourism program with my, because I'm on an executive board. So it's a very big working parts. And so we have the Chinese monument, and that's bringing tourism in, and Railroad Days is bringing people up to Colfax. So Colfax is a family-friendly town.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Douglas.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess you need the question.
That's an easy question to answer.
The abandoned hotel in downtown Colfax must be addressed. How will you encourage development of that property?
Okay, well, again, for years and years, Tom Parnham and I, when he was on the council, we were trying everything we could do to find buyers. We actually got some fines levied against the hotel, the two of us. And because of that, we put a kind of a fire under the current owners, and they ended up selling it to new owners. And so one thing we can do is keep putting pressure on them economically to sell it to a new buyer who will actually do something with it rather than just sitting on it. So I think that if after a couple more years the sufficient pressure can't be put on, we're going to have to be forced to, maybe the city could buy it, or we could just condemn it for some reason. But we can't just keep talking about it. We have to actually do something within the next 2 or 3 years and resolve this situation. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza.
So I too have been trying to creatively think about what to do with the hotel that's downtown that has been basically empty for decades. But, you know, like Kim Douglas said, what's really hard about that is that, you know, that's an owner that has bought that. And so being able to, well, one thing that happened is what they did to the hotel is so it's a historic building. And so that's one of my things that I do here in Colfax is I'm protecting and preserving the historic downtown around, like I said, the Chinese workers, the forgotten Chinese workers, you know, and those types of things. But with the hotel, one of the owners did was they replaced the windows, and that completely took it out of its historic value to be on the national registries, which, you know, what I'm saying is that they're owners. And so you just basically have to try and get the right person to buy the building,
Thank
like
you.
Kim Douglas said.
Mr. Ackerman?
Again, in the spirit of preserving the historical aspect of Colfax, you know, I'd also like to see it rebuilt. I mean, one idea is to, for example, to put that CB, basically the Community Development Block Grant funding towards assistance, some sort of assistance grant to get it rebuilt. The city can you know, get it rebuilt. Obviously, it would go along with the historical perseverance theme, and you know, personally, I'd love to see some sort of brewery or restaurant in there, and I could spew a whole bunch of different examples, but basically, I think being creative with different kinds of funding and grants is how we can finally, once and for all, do an overhaul on that historic hotel and make it truly a nice centerpiece of downtown Colfax.
For our next question, we'll begin with Ms. Mendoza. What is your vision for wildfire safety in our community?
So my vision is to continue. One of the reasons why I'm rerunning for re-election is because this is the stuff that I've been, you know, pretty much getting attention on and working with state leaders, you know, to get the funding in and to be able to be moving forward. So we have the fire breaks that we've went in and we're doing that, but we need to do more because we are high risk. And like I said, there's a lot of citizens to evacuate out. So one of the things that I've been trying to get the community to come together on is called CERT. It's Community Emergency Response Teams. And that's where we all come together and we, you know, get through the crisis. So last year in October of 2019, I created a CERT team because our power went out for 6 days. So as far as wildland safety, like I've been doing this stuff for 4 years. So I'm on it. Thank you.
Mr. Ackerman.
Yeah, this goes hand in hand almost with the road maintenance, reparation, just around here. Pretty much, first of all, we need to get our infrastructure of our town down pat, repaired, fixed, etc. Roads, but it also goes with just vegetation clearance. Just clearing things a lot better. One example of something very simple, for example, in the community that I live in, that we're considering, and it's very economical, is just that FireWise program. It's something that if most communities, and the community is loosely defined, you have to research it. You'll see what I'm talking about. But if these communities just did FireWise, for example, I mean, just that alone, it's a very economical way to just help various neighborhoods within our community just better prevent wildfires.
Mr. Douglas.
Okay. On a regular basis, our local fire chief Egan meets with our city council and live on TV, gives advice for the local community on how to make their specific area more fire safe. And we've started enforcing some codes and ordinances. So that helps locally. In addition, we met recently with the governor locally at Cal Fire and discussing this problem where we're going to create a fire break, and we already have, around the city of Colfax. They've allocated hundreds and hundreds of man hours. So our specific city is in pretty good shape, especially because the governor is working with us in that regard. Thank you.
For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Ackerman. If economic development is an important issue, why restrict cannabis dispensaries?
Are you asking my opinion on whether or not I'd want to restrict cannabis dispensaries, or just in general?
Well, if it's an important issue, why should we restrict the dispensaries?
I think the biggest reason why we need to consider restricting it is because, as I previously stated, there's pros and cons to this specific topic of dispensaries, and the biggest con, it quite simply is just how the public feels about it, whether you have kids or not. I mean that's the biggest con to it, and therefore, I mean, out of respect to our community members, that's probably the biggest reason why it need to be considered.
Mr. Douglas.
Okay, well, since I've been on two other city councils, one council leaning to the right, the other council leaning to the left, and we've spent over $100,000 in attorney fees and staff fees saying, should we allow it or should we not allow it? And before we do that, I think we need a workshop where we don't have to pay a lot of attorneys' money, and with the new council, and determine exactly what is a break-even point. And besides, we have to remember that we're already over $100,000 in the hole on this discussion. The other consideration is we've got a couple of schools nearby, and that's a major factor we have to consider as well. So I would leave it up to the next council, which I may be part of, and we have to have more workshops and find out exactly what it's going to cost, what's our break-even point, when are we going to recover what we've already paid in this discussion. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza.
So I also have been in these talks, and again, I'm going to, repeat myself that when you become an elected leader, you no longer have a voice. You have to listen to the voice of your constituents. And there has been numerous I'm trying to think of the word, opposition. So we already, we've had the workshops, we've had the opposition come in, and the place that's in existence right now is a pilot program. And, if Kim Douglas wants to continue, moving in that direction, like, I'm totally okay with that, because I've been advocating, for this topic here. But again, it doesn't matter what I feel. What matters is what the citizens of Colfax feel, and they don't want it. And, I can't change that.
For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Douglas. How do you see our community being able to grow while keeping the same safe small town atmosphere?
Because there's so many bureaucratic rules and regulations that the old days are over of uncontrolled growth like they may have had in San Jose and the Silicon Valley. I think even if we try to go gangbusters and develop Walmarts and so on, we wouldn't be able to do it. So I think we should just go full blast economic development, knowing that the physical constraints of the hills that we have around us, which prevent, a Walmart type of structure, I don't think we have to worry about the delicate balance. I think we should just go with economic development, and it's going to happen slowly, even if we wanted it to move quickly. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
How do you see our community being able to grow while keeping the same safe, small town atmosphere?
So, I don't know, it's tough. You know what? I don't have a response to that because it's just, I don't have a response to that question.
Mr. Ackerman?
My simple response is it's case by case. Again, I've stressed economic development. It's got to be methodical. It's got to be case by case. I don't think there's as much restrictions to economical development as maybe others may think. But I do think that if you take things case by case and wisely, there's a way to balance and preserve the historical aspect of Colfax, all while trying to vet out, if you will, new economic development opportunities that will obviously, help our community, our city from a revenue standpoint, which will in turn go towards infrastructure, et cetera. So to me, it's methodical growth, vet it wisely, and just take it case by case.
For our next question, we'll begin with Ms. Mendoza. What will you do to help our citizens with obtaining fire insurance and maintaining affordable rates?
Okay, so that too is another thing that I've been working on. So basically that comes with the Fire Safe Council that we have in place that takes place every month on Thursdays at 6:00, becoming fire-wise communities. We put an ordinance in place around vegetation that will be enforceable in 2021. And that's super important because people, you have to keep your debris from your home. In order for the insurance companies to look, you have to go with the, the scales. And so basically we've been working on that, and we actually went down a level. And so it's just all about advocacy and just putting things in place to prove to the insurance companies that, and the fire breaks is really super important, that we have that fire break that'll protect the city.
Thank you. Mr. Ackerman?
Yeah, to Marnie's point, the vegetation ordinance, that was big. And that's something that I think that the community needs to continue to support. I promise I'm not getting paid by Firewise when I say this, but again, Firewise is like a really nice example. And it can be easily promoted by the city, reinforced by the city, the community, et cetera. As simple as it sounds, that's just one example of how, from my understanding, because me personally, our insurance just got canceled and we had to switch to a combo fare plan / yada, yada. Long story short, during my quest to look for a new insurance provider, I did learn from some insurance brokers that these insurance companies are starting to take Firewise communities more seriously for whatever that's worth. So therefore, that's why I'm emphasizing it heavily. So that's probably the main thing I'd like to state on this.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes, in addition to what the two previous candidates said about the local ordinance and adhering to that and what Chief Egan recommends, keeping in contact with the retired Chief Paulus and Jennifer Montgomery, who was Placer County Supervisor. They are actively working with the insurance companies and at a state level with senators. So by keeping in contact with them, encouraging them, that's where we can really make some headway, because that's where the real clout is. If they can convince the senators and the insurance companies, and they have access to those doors, then we can make it beneficial and cheaper for everybody in Placer County. So we have to think locally, which we're doing, and then we have to stay in contact with retired Chief Paulus and Jennifer Montgomery at a state level. Thank you.
For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Ackerman. Do you think there should be term limits for Colfax City Council?
In my own opinion, yeah, and I'm okay with the current limits for City Council. However, with respect to mayor, ever since I've lived here, just in general, even though I know that's not part of the question, but I'll just throw it in anyways as a bonus. I think that, we should have more consistency with our mayorship, if you will, and it shouldn't rotate every year. And I can give pros and cons, but getting back to your specific question, yeah, I'm okay with the current limits as far as City Council goes.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes, I'm in term limits for everything, every level, state government, local, federal. It's just too obvious. People get in, especially the federal and state level, they just stay there, and then it just becomes a bureaucracy for them, and they've lost the touch with the common person. And I think since I'm an incumbent, this is the third time I'm running, if I would have term limits, I would have just 2, which means that I couldn't run this time. So I wouldn't want to be in a club that would have me as a member, I guess. So definitely I'm in favor of term limits. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza.
Hi, yes. So as far as term limits in our area is a small district, I'm in favor of term limits. I think that, it's really important to have transparency, and sometimes in small areas things happen. So I'm in favor of that.
I think we have time for just one more question, and we will begin with Mr. Douglas. What are the 3 biggest challenges facing Colfax, and how would you address them?
Well, our budget, I mentioned this before, in 3 years, we may be in trouble. So we need to start now about how we allocate funds, and if we can't increase revenue, we may have to think of the unthinkable and find other ways to cut costs. But we have to think outside the box. I've used that term before. Ways of getting new businesses in here. We can't just look at the way we've been doing business for the last 8 years and expect that will work for us. We have to get all the different organizations together, have workshops, think of ways, the Chamber of Commerce, the business owners, potential builders to come to our area. We have vacant lots. We have businesses that are not doing very well. We need to just get everybody together. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza.
What the biggest 3 challenges are? I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
What are the 3 biggest challenges facing Colfax, and how would you address them?
Okay, so I agree with Kim Douglas as far as the businesses, like that's a focus, but I have to say that to me, because I'm the current mayor, the most important thing right now is COVID. We've got to keep our citizens safe, and I have been on a lot of calls, on the federally, state, and had to been creative and reassess the situation and then reassess the situation again. But the most important thing is, we're in an unprecedented time, and we don't know, what's going to happen. So I'm just going to continue to fight around the COVID and make sure that our area is protected, but yet our freedoms aren't taken away. And then the roads.
Mr. Ackerman.
Yeah, top three challenges. Sewage first comes to mind, without doubt. Lack of diversity in our tax base, our crippled infrastructure, and then to Kim's point, just trying to get a lot of these small businesses just back open fully and thriving again. As far as how I would address them, what would I do? I wouldn't be coming into this with answers. That'd be a lie. But again, my style, I would have a business approach. If elected, I would listen to the public, take notes. I'm a quick learner, and basically just apply my rationale and my skill sets to helping the other council members make sound decisions on how to address these certain issues within our community.
And now the candidates will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. We'll begin with Mr. Ackerman.
Well, in closing, again, Kathy, Bonnie, if you're still there, I can't see everybody out there. Thank you for sponsoring this and putting this on. Kim, Marnie, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you guys. The community that's out there, I can't see all of your faces, but thank you guys for just putting in questions and stuff. In short, my theme is I bring a fresh perspective, that's not to say that how things are now aren't working. It just, if again, I was honored to win a seat, I would bring that fresh perspective, my business background, my experience from serving on numerous boards, and basically apply those skills. And be a pretty sound team member. And I'm not afraid to make tough decisions at all. So thank you guys for your time tonight.
Mr. Douglas.
Okay, first I want to say that if I win, I'll be a winner. If I lose, I'll still be a winner because it'll free me up a lot of time. I spend a lot of time behind the scenes that very few people know about. I go and talk to the merchants. I find out what they're thinking. I try to get new builders in the town. My batting average is probably about 120, very low. But I think that's what a council member should do. They need to do things that are not only on the agenda, but outside the agenda. It was very stressful for me in the year 2012 when I ran. Then I ran and I won. And then 4 years later, I ran. And it was very stressful. Running again, it's anxiety producing. So I would like to say, in the words of Winston Churchill, politics is almost as dangerous and exciting as war. In war, you can only die once. Thank you.
Ms. Mendoza.
Well, I just want to close by saying, thank you to the Women League of Voters and for you guys to putting this together. Really important in COVID that we were able to reach out to our voters because it's, we're on a different scale now. I want to thank Kim Douglas and David for showing up because it's a way for me really to get to know what my opponents, are focused on. And I really like both of, their answers to the questions that you guys answered. I want everybody to know that I love Colfax and I am humbled and honored to be able to help the people every day and to represent our beautiful city. I fight hard to get like I said, our state and federal funding here to be able to address $6 million in the sewer, to be able to address keeping families and individuals safe in these wildfire zones. And I just ask for your vote. Thank you.
That concludes our forum. I would like to thank the candidates for participating. You all did a great job. I would also like to thank all the volunteers who have made this forum possible. We hope you found this forum helpful. If you haven't received them already, you should soon receive voter information and ballots in the mail. Please read the information carefully. Due to COVID-19, there are a lot of changes to our election process this year. If you are voting by mail, please mail your ballot early. If you are voting in person, please note that our traditional polling places are being replaced with voter service centers located throughout the county. There will be opportunities for early voting. There will also be several drop box locations available in various locations. For information on how to vote, where to vote, and when to vote, please visit placerelections.com. That's placerelections.com. Thank you for attending the forum. Good night.